What's up, guys? It's Coach Caglione here, and this is another Garage Gym Reviews, and this time we're doing one of Burke's gym. This is Lisa and Jim Burke's home gym. Lisa's been a team member for, I think, a little over 5 years, originally residing in New Jersey, recently moved to Florida, and I was coaching in Florida in this particular weekend, and decided to get some training in with her. One of the things I used to do quite often when I was a single man, and I was traveling a bit more, although traveling is picking me up. But anyways, I always just try to do some in-person training. I do think there are some things that you can do in person that are just not possible online, and just also having that human connection, being able to kind of spot things that only really a coach's eye can do in person. But anyways, so you can kind of see here that something like a power rack like this is great if you're kind of doing lighter work. Kind of the downside is that you really can't adjust the safeties. But again, for lighter work and also for weight storage and stuff, something like this could be a potentially good option. So the half racks take up a little bit less space. And you can kind of see here, so Lisa is a competitive power lifter. She hasn't competed in a bit, but she has a bunch of records in kind of the masters category. And you can kind of see here that she is elected to have some contest equipment. So she has a deadlift bar. Again, when it comes to barbell storage and stuff, whether it's horizontal or vertical storage, there's a lot of different options in terms of utilizing wall space or just utilizing different rack attachments and things like that for barbell storage. But if you are a competitive lifter, it is good to at least have similar bars and plates. Although, as you can kind of see here, she's got like a bunch of bumper plates and steel plates, and then you can kind of I don't think the plates are the most important thing. But I think having good barbells that are going to last a lifetime is going to be important. So on this particular day, this is our second session of the week, and this was a lower body day, so I was kind of doing some squats. You can't really see here, but I'm using a buffalo bar. And Lisa is a master's lifter, and I'm also approaching a master's lifter. But I have about 20 competitive years under my belt, so sometimes my shoulders get cranky. So something like a buffalo bar could be a really good option. I did also a review of the squat saddle versus the top squat. The top squat can be a good option as well if you don't want to get an extra barbell. But if you do have the space for a buffalo bar, if you're a competitive lifter, I do think that training with the buffalo bar most of the time, you could also use it for other things like a extended range of motion bench as well, if you want to use that as like a secondary movement or something kind of early in your training cycle. So the buffalo bar is a good option. You can also kind of see here that, again, Lisa is not competing right now, so she's utilizing some straps. Again, just kind of to take the grip out of the equation. As we get closer to a competition, we'll kind of take the straps away. And I just elected to kind of do some technical work on this day. One of the things I'm kind of realizing is that there's nothing wrong with just kind of going lighter. There's nothing wrong with just kind of using some sessions just for form practice. So again, if I'm traveling, if I don't have a belt, I don't feel like kind of getting a belt and stuff. And I was also wanting to kind of show her some different technical things like pulling the slack out, finding that kind of position where you're being patient, kind of getting set, and also kind of getting that leg drive. So with the deadlift bar taking advantage of taking the flex out, it's going to be important. And even if you're a lifter that kind of competes with a stiff bar, I do think there's some utility in some deadlift bar training because you could really kind of feel if you're actually pulling the slack out or not, where sometimes with a stiff bar, it could be a little bit more challenging. So, and if you are somebody that is just a strength enthusiast, I do think the deadlift bar is just a little bit more forgiving on the lower back, puts you in a better position if you can kind of learn how to use it. So that's just something to consider. But again, if you don't have the space for it, but if you are a competitive lifter, if you're an older lifter, I do think using some specialty bars, like a deadlift bar, like a buffalo bar. And then when it comes to bench press, I actually really like pressing with a squat bar, which you'll kind of see, or you might have seen in the other video. I was pressing with the squat bar. But on this particular day, we're kind of working on Lisa's starting position. So again, I'm doing both stances, but just pay attention more. And you can kind of see here that I'm starting to kind of get situated. And we're just kind of just doing some, and I'm just kind of, I was showing Lisa just kind of some differences and kind of like really kind of teaching her how to kind of pull the slack out of the bar. And we just wanted to kind of show her what that kind of looks like. And on this particular day, I was doing some sumo, some conventional, and then when I got up to the heavier weights, I just kind of strapped in and kind of stayed conventional because I'm trying to work on my back strength. But I am kind of doing some, I think there's some value in kind of training both stances, no matter what your goals are. So that's what we kind of did there. Okay, so Lisa's kind of strapped in. I think we're getting close to her like top sets. One of the things that I was kind of explaining to Lisa, it's really important as you kind of get to your heavier sets. Really important that you try to just focus on execution and not to focus on the weight so much. I know it's easier said than done, and especially if you are kind of training in a garage gym in your own setting. You don't always have the luxury to do that because you are obviously loading your own weights and stuff like that. But that's where kind of having like an in-person coach can be good, or doing some in-person sessions. It's one of the things that we do at Gaglione Strengths. We do like a lot of hybrid training.
That was better.
And I think you can kind of get the best of both worlds. You kind of do some in-person work, as well as the accountability and individualization and the flexibility of like the online programming and coaching option. When we do our online coaching, we still communicate regularly. We still do video breakdowns. We still there's a lot of communication and consulting going on. There's a lot of powerlifting coaches, quote unquote coaches, that really just kind of focus, I think, a little bit too much on the program, and not really kind of the human interaction, not really kind of talking about their lifestyle, adjusting their program kind of based on their needs, their age, their demographic, and their life circumstance. So again, for me, I was just kind of getting more technical work in. I think then Lisa had to use the ladies' room, so I did a couple of sets. And this is kind of when you're training with a group. Sometimes you kind of just adjust the rest periods kind of based off what each person's doing. So if you have 2 in a row, for every one, that's something that kind of happens a lot. So on this particular day,
finish.
I think Lisa kind of worked
Stay
up
with
to the
it.
top
One
set
more.
of
Come on.
305 for a double.
Come on.
So it's pretty good. So again, for master's lifter,
hips through.
not too shabby.
Good job. Good.
So she's kind of getting ready to put on some strength once again. Not quite in her top form, but she's getting back up there. And listen, for a 300-pound deadlift for a woman, nothing to scoff at, especially for a master's athlete. So here we're kind of experimenting with some different things. If you're limited on weight in terms of like machines, bands, and stuff like that, doing single arm or single limb options can be a good thing to do. You don't need to load it up quite as much weight. I think, especially in terms of powerlifters, tend to do most of their training like bilaterally, like 2 legs at the same time. So I do think there's a lot of utility in doing unilateral training. And one of the kind of, downsides of a lot of unilateral training for the lower body, when it comes to like lunges, split squats, and stuff like that, the downside is a lot of times that's unstable, which, again, if that's the goal to improve hip stability and improve balance, and that's fine. But in terms of like actual output, maybe working muscular imbalances, hypertrophy, unilateral work with machines could be a good kind of complement. So things like leg extensions and leg curls definitely have their place. And a lot of times, they're getting better and better with rack, but even like simple rack attachments like this. And again, a lot of people will kind of argue about the strength curve and stuff like that. But a lot of times when you're doing kind of squats and deadlifts, you are disadvantaging yourself in the bottom in that kind of more stretched position anyway. So it's something to consider if you're, don't worry about, doing some short position work, things that help more at the lockout. I think is a good complement to especially your squats. So here I'm using the booty sprout. So again, I would just say if you do have the space for a dedicated hip thrust unit, there's a lot of different options like the GMWD or the bells of seal and different things. I think having some sort of belt or strap is good. But the booty sprout is kind of good if you're just looking to kind of get some blood flow and just kind of do higher up training. My only kind of issue with some of the bands here, I felt at a certain point they were kind of getting kind of plastic where I couldn't really stretch them anymore. Because the resistance was good, it just kind of felt like, again, I'm just a bigger guy, so I think if you're a smaller individual, I think Marissa Inda, she's a IPF world champion. I believe she resides in California now. You can see why I felt a little silly when I ordered the fourth one. Part of, I was like, okay, maybe that wasn't necessary. The Juggernaut training systems. But anyways, I know she's an advocate for this, so just doing higher up work. And the good thing about this is it really kind of spares the lower back.
But I really
if you're
like
a bigger
it.
person,
it sits in the exact
a little bit cumbersome to get into. I was not really able to kind of get in and out
really
with all the bands personally, so that's just kind of something to consider there. But in terms of what's good about the booty sprout, it can I think fold up and store under like a bed or something. So if you do want to get some direct glute training, I do think it's a good option. If you're not, I'd say if you're under like 200 pounds, it's probably a really good option for a home gym. But outside of, I think if you're over 200 pounds, or if you're like 220, 242 plus, competitive powerlifter, might be a little bit cumbersome.
I feel like it's such a better
the load might be
position for shoulders
or if you're
too
just a
than
really
being
tall
on the
person. If
barbell.
you're
Like
shorter,
on the
smaller
bench.
person, I would definitely recommend.
That whole ergonomic thing.
And I think hip thrusts. I think again, I think heavy hip thrusts are overrated, but I think
All right, settle back.
high rep hip thrusts
Air.
are underrated, and it's going to
Squat.
ensure you get full hip extension.
Hold.
And a lot of
Drive.
times it'll help.
Good,
In my
okay.
opinion, with your deadlift lockout, just to kind of learn how to feel
Hold.
and use your glutes.
Drive.
So on this particular day,
3 more.
again, if you have access to,
Up.
if you have the ability to use a safety bar,
2
if
more.
you're not a competitive powerlifter, this could be a good option if you're
Up.
an athlete.
Last
If
one.
you don't have the room for a safety squat bar.
Up.
Right now, I believe the top
Good.
squat is the best in the market. It is not the most comfortable, but it is the most balanced. It's not going to fall off your back like the strap bar and the squat saddle. I'm never going to give another dime to take over strength, but again, not to be a hater, but it's just kind of me personally. I don't really appreciate companies that have no regard for athlete safety and just aren't even doing anything to kind of change it. I don't think that the bar is ready for the market, but again, that's just my opinion. As someone who's squatted 800 pounds in 6 weight classes, I've squatted 1,000 pounds in training, and I also train regular people as well, and I don't think it's safe for them. But anyways, I digress. So here, one of the modifications I did to this, Lisa was kind of saying that she wasn't really, it just for whatever, it was kind of uncomfortable, or it was the lying leg curl, so with this attachment was not working for her, so we ended up taking off that piece. And then we kind of rigged up a way we can kind of do basically a standing unilateral leg curl. And you can see I'm just kind of bending over to kind of, again, get in a little bit more of a stretch position. Again, doing one leg at a time. This felt pretty good. Don't need a lot of weight. Again, you're going to get a lot of more tension at the lockout with this style. But again, if you're doing RDLs and stuff like that, you're going to hit the stretch position.
Good.
So that's fine. So that was something that we kind of worked on together, and I felt pretty good. So again, on this particular day, you could also see that Lisa is a competitive powerlifter, and she does compete in wraps from time to time. Not all the time, but I believe her next meet will probably be either naked knees or in sleeves. So having the monolift arms are good to kind of practice if you again are in a home gym setting and you can't like have a dedicated monolift. They're a good kind of in-between option. I've kind of used monolift arms. The only again issue is that you can't. You have to kind of either lean in or walk them back in, but it will allow you to kind of practice the setup, and you don't need to walk out your squats. So it's a good option. They also can be good if you bench alone, and if you want to use them for bench press. A lot of people use them for bench press as well. There's a bunch of different brands where it makes you find them, and there's different types that you can kind of get. As long as it's kind of compatible with your rack, I think it's a good option if you're a competitive lifter. And then it's always good to like set up your safeties. But again, I was kind of watching her, so yeah, that was kind of like the workout of the day. But you can kind of see, so like in the garage, usually we'll do like 1 to 2 barbell movements. So we did some squats, we did some deadlifts, and then we just kind of finished with some accessory work. So whether it be isolation work, do quads, hamstrings, and glutes. Sometimes we'll do some core after our main movement, but that's kind of like how I like to kind of structure a lower body session. If you're more of a strength athlete, if you were more kind of focused on hypertrophy, then the order could potentially change. And you could also kind of see Jim Burke there is getting his cardio in. So having some sort of, you'll kind of see that so they got a Peloton and a tonal. So I'm not going to go over the Peloton because it's more strength channel, but in powerlifting. But I'm going to kind of share my comments on the tonal as well in another episode. So stay tuned for that. So that's basically kind of it in a nutshell. If you guys have any kind of other kind of pieces you want me to review, if there's anything that you kind of want to see in terms of
Squeeze.
equipment reviews, if you'd like me to visit some more home gyms, let me know.
Feels okay.
So just kind of one of the things I wanted to kind of just show Lisa kind of how to use the single leg extension. You can kind of see here that we're really trying to make sure that the knee is aligned straight. So sometimes if you're a bigger person, with the double leg version, it can be really hard to get that alignment. So you can kind of see the hips align with the knee. And the knee is kind of perpendicular to the loading pad. And it's kind of in line with like the pivot. So that's going to be a really good way to set up, whether you're doing like I said, a leg extension or leg curl, but especially for a leg extension. I think it's a little bit easier to kind of keep the knee straight on a leg curl with this setup. But just kind of something where we kind of
it's a good habit.
Kind of
Do one more in
person. But also, it's a good idea to kind of just video yourself. And then again, also here,
Yep,
we're kind
wedge
of
in
working
there.
on her.
Good.
And I kind of did the same kind of movement with like Larry Wheels.
So you might
So I'm
need
really
two
trying to kind
sets, but that's
of
okay.
drive,
Let's do
get that
5
hip
like that.
really like long.
Next set we'll
And kind of scoop, almost kind of kick up
next
dirt
set we'll
like a
we'll put
bullwood
another block
kind of
for
thing.
you.
That's kind of like I'm thinking about
That's why
scooping. So you could think about like this movement almost like a
practicing.
preacher curl,
So that way you
but
can get
for
like a
your,
little more range. But that's
essentially it's your
Two
leg
more.
bicep, right? Bicep femoris is
One more.
one of the hamstring.
Yes.
So the only thing with Lisa, we kind of made an adjustment on this set. We had to kind of
So make sure
stand
you
on some
under the
blocks
pad.
here. So something like those BC blocks
Square
can
up
be
your
very
bodies here.
effective
Yep.
for a variety of different movements, not just
Scoop.
block pulls, but just kind of adjusting heights and
Good.
certain
A little
things.
higher.
That allowed her knee to kind of align a
And
little
then
bit better.
control. That's good. Just keep that
With the pivot point,
everything tight
but yeah, I
to
think
the
if you're kind of
pad.
doing some sort
Right
of kind
there.
of,
Good.
standing single leg curl or kind of a bent over single
Squeeze.
leg curl,
Let's do
think
3
about
and
kind of
1.
scooping the floor, think of it almost like a preacher curl.
Again.
So we're putting a lot of pressure into the thigh pad
One
for
more.
stability, and it's going to be a great way to get a hamstring
Rest.
contraction. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay strong. See you soon.